Awesome. Great to finally meet you, because this is how we meet each other nowadays. Thanks for coming on the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Sure. My name's Jonathan Hika. I have been a software developer for the last 20 years, even though I may not look like it.
Still?
Yeah, I started this stuff back when DOS was the main thing.
Oh my God, DOS.
And so I am passionate about software development first, but actually through a bunch of life events and things that have happened to me throughout my career, etc., I've really developed a large spiritual base, and that foundation has really carried me through a ton of other stuff and unlocked and opened a lot of doors for me. So now I use those things both in my business with my current position, job, as well as personally to help others grow, evolve, and transform their lives.
Nice. Very cool. So what do you want to talk about first?
Well, anything you'd like, actually. We can start at any end of the spectrum, all the way from, how did I do this software stuff? I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, a small town, and so how did I get all the way to California? Or, we can even go with the kind of crazier experiences, which is, I had a near-death experience in 2016 after running a race, and fell at the end of the finish line. And that is kind of the catalyst for a lot of the spiritual growth and transformation that I've done. So
wow. So what did you do before that? So you were a software developer, and what kind of things did you develop?
Yeah, sure. So once upon a time, I lived on the East Coast. I had my own business, Computer John Productions. I still have that business, actually. And I developed software for medium and small businesses originally. And I made a lot of websites for Fortune 500 companies as well, marketing websites for stuff like Sony or JetBlue or Norwegian Cruise Lines, all through digital marketing agencies. And the smaller
stuff. Is that
stuff,
like back when you could charge $1 million for one web page, or no?
Yeah, pretty much. That was kind of the golden days of web design, right? Where you'd get a project for a small company and it's $10,000 to build them a website, and
I know
that like now it's like that's never gonna happen.
Yeah, now it's free, right? You just download WordPress, find a theme, and bam, you're done.
Yeah, we just want this Wix site set up now. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was where I started, and I kind of transitioned away from the little one-off websites to more corporate style stuff and larger entities. I worked on a very large project for public storage, and that was kind of what eventually led to me getting to California. That project was to replace their point of sale system, to really bring them from where they were into the 21st century with new technology, iPads, interaction between the teller and the customer, a lot of things like that. It was really cutting edge at the time. That was like circa 2012, 2013, like that.
Can you believe it's 10 years ago?
Wow. That seems crazy, right? Like it's like time doesn't really exist.
I know. I mean, I look at stuff that it's 10 years old, and I'm like, it feels like it's forever ago. It's like so ancient looking, right? I mean,
that's what's crazy, right? It's like now the stuff. It's like you try to project things 10 years out, and it's like, well, you look 10 years back, and it's like, wow, we wouldn't do anything that way anymore.
I know. Everything's totally different. So, but that doesn't sound like software. That sounds like a hardware, software. I mean, why did you?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I'm a tech enthusiast. I always have been. If you look around my office here, you can see I've got a 3D printer back.
Nice.
I actually have another 3D printer in there. So I do a bunch of stuff, a bunch of interaction type stuff like that. I build my own tech toys too. If you've seen the latest Ghostbusters movie, there was a thing called the RTV remote trap vehicle, and I saw that and I was like, they don't make these, and I really kind of want one. And so if you're interested in that, I totally built one of those, and
nice.
I have to give praise to the Ghostbusters Facebook group. The 3D printed props, Ghostbusters prop Facebook group really had a lot of great information. But I do have a ghost trap that goes 80 miles an hour.
Oh, nice.
So I've always had this kind of marriage of hardware and software. There's a lot you can do when you can control both. And so like I've kind of taken that approach to things, and then that led a lot into my position with Becton Dickinson. And so that's where I'm currently at. That's where I've been for the last almost 7 years at this point as a software engineer, staff engineer, et cetera, and working in their R&D department on cutting edge, innovative health technologies. So,
Nice.
it's healthcare is a very different kind of beast. And up until this position, I really didn't have a lot of knowledge of what that whole industry looked like. And I can tell you, after being in it for the last 7 years, they definitely need us. So.
But almost every industry needs to be disrupted, but healthcare is right on the edge. But the problem is that it's so heavily regulated, so it's really tough to do anything interesting and
This is the biggest challenge that BD faces with a lot of stuff. Honestly, is BD is a very large publicly traded company, about 80,000 plus employees, scattered across the world. Everything is, there's been a lot of acquisitions. There's been a lot of stuff that they built from the ground up, et cetera. And just like you said, everything is so heavily regulated. It's like there's the Alaris pump, which is used pretty much in every hospital that you go into. They just had a submission to work through some regulations with that, which is all clear and good to go. And everybody is super happy about. But again, it's stuff like that can really hold up innovation in healthcare.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like, how do you get innovative new things out the door then? Do you have to stick with software, or, I mean, it sounds like it's a really tough environment.
Like, so what you kind of have to do is really look at the regulation space and say, okay, where can we provide value that doesn't cause flags to go up for regulation? So you kind of have to take a step back to take a step forward at that point. And so, I can only talk so much about the things that we're doing because, NDAs.
Obviously, you can't. But
right. So
you have to stay within this box, basically.
However, that is kind of the jam, is that, we find ways to say, okay, if I create a software solution and it hooks up to existing stuff, or I create a software solution for a new product, how is the interactions between that going to affect a patient? And so there's large groups of medical professionals that we work with, consultants that we work with, and things like that, to actually go through, okay, so where in this can we make movement, and where in this do we kind of have to back off?
Right. So did you get into the healthcare space because of what happened to you, or was that after the fact?
It was actually during. So that is such an interesting story too. So I moved out to California in 2016, and essentially I had finished up my public storage project and handed that off all nicely. And then I had always known if I ever came to California, I'd move here. So that's what happened. I had been coming for years, and now it was like, okay, we don't need to live in upstate New York anymore. We've had 10 years of snow and punishment, and we're good. And so I actually, when I finished that project, I'd flown back to my place in Rochester, and I was there for like a day. And I said, you know what? Now's the time. Let's go. I bought a plane ticket to fly to San Diego. I flew out here, and it was for 2 weeks. In the first week, I found a job. In the second week, I found a house. I flew back home, packed all my stuff, and drove across the country to my new life in California. And so that was the beginning of my relationship with BD. I started with them in October of 2016, and I didn't really know too much about them. I actually joined CareFusion, which CareFusion was acquired by BD actually earlier that year or the previous year. And so there was a lot of stuff with the acquisition that hadn't quite finished up yet. So it was a very interesting time coming in at that point, because we were kind of BD and we're kind of not BD yet. So there was a little bit of like, where do I fall in this? And so that was, like I said, October 15th. And on November 11th is when I ran my race, and, for lack of a better word, died.
Jeez. Wow.
I had no idea really at that point what BD even did. They have this amazing safety center tour that almost anyone can go on, and employees go on it as a part of the new hire process. Well, most of the time it's pretty booked up, so it's 45 or 60 or 90 days out instead of within the first 30 days. So I hadn't even taken the safety center tour, when this all happened yet.
Jeez.
And so when I woke up in the hospital, and you can see this on the YouTube video, I'll give you the link for it too. I described the same thing. It's like I'm looking around the room and I'm like, okay, that pump says Care Fusion on it, or that ventilator says Care Fusion on it, and
Wow.
that Alaris pump says BD on it. Wait a second, like that's where I work, and I'm like, and so it's very surreal because here I was like now.
You thought, am I in the office?
Literally every machine they make, and it was kind of humbling as well, and it gives you a different look at the place that you're working when those devices that you're making that you are claiming save people's lives are actually in the midst of saving yours.
Right. Well, do you remember anything about the experience, like when you were
in the hospital, out of the hospital?
No, in between.
Okay.
The floating over your body part.
Yeah, actually, so that's kind of the thing I do remember. So, from my experience, what happened from the earthly angle was I crossed this finish line. I did a jump up for the camera thing and fell over. And I got up and was humbled by my falling. And so I walked my red face off. And so, when I heard the story of what happened, it's also described that I talked to this little girl. It was her first time volunteering. And she said, "Are you all right?" And I looked back at her and said, "Oh yeah, honey, I'm fine." And upon saying that, I fell to the ground. And that's when my heart stopped and everybody rushed to save me. So that's what I heard. From my perspective, I stood up from this fall and I felt very embarrassed, and I was walking that off. And the next thing that I remember, I was in this very dark place with a very bright light. And if you've ever had like a flashlight shine right in your face, or a floodlight, or seen the images of like a train light coming at you kind of thing, like, just a bright light, not necessarily like a tunnel or something, but just this bright light. That's what I saw. And to describe, like, I thought about it, thought about the light and thought about being at it, and then I was kind of the thing. And so that was the beginning of my experience outside of my body.
Wow.
I don't know how far you want me to go, but we can keep going all day.
No, but I mean, so like, then you woke up in the hospital, and then when did you decide, I need to take this different path? Is that immediately or? So
yeah, very much so. Basically what ended up happening was when I realized where I was at in, like, before waking up, right? When I realized where I was at in the midst of this, other space, I had a lot of questions, which is very interesting to say, because the way that I felt like I was connected to, all of me and all of my experiences and stuff. So I felt like I had more access to any knowledge that I would have as well. But I still had questions that I wanted to ask people, right? And a lot of people will say it's like they see their mom, their dad, but I kind of was more like a Karen and wanted to talk to the manager. So,
did like the smoke clear? Did you feel like more clarity in your life, or what?
Yeah, and honestly, that's what happened. So through that whole experience, I just felt like I was just gaining a whole lot of clarity. I felt like I was gaining a whole lot of understanding. I felt like I was really coming to terms with any beliefs that I had or any values that I had, and how those now affected me with this new knowledge. When I woke up in the hospital, it had been 7 days. And to me, it felt like it had been about 5 minutes. So that was my first, oh my God, what happened?
Yeah.
How am I perceiving that this was only 5 minutes when what I'm seeing now is that it's been a week? And things that were just not possible with my mental model, like my dad and brother sitting across the room, they live 3,000 plus miles away. There was no way for them to be across the room from me. So, I started having this panic, this fear, all of this stuff coming up where I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Am I brain damaged? And I couldn't even, I went to pick my hands up and they were strapped down. I had tubes and wires through everything. I couldn't move. And I just didn't even know what to do. And honestly, they're like, "Oh, you want a pen to write?" I'm like, "Yeah, totally. Let me talk." And I just want to write what happened. Right? So they hand me a pen and my hands didn't.
Oh,
so
wow.
I couldn't write. And I'm like, "Oh, maybe text message." And when that didn't work, I broke down. I honestly was in complete tears, because as a software engineer, if I can't type, I'm not a software engineer. right?
Yeah.
So it was starting to get pretty real. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't type. Arms are tied down. Can't talk because I've got a ventilator in. And so I got pretty scared in that moment. Now, mind you, I just came back from this place where I've had all these realizations, right? And so I'm like, all right, none of this is really real. And we can affect this too. And so they're like, do you want to try writing again? And I shook my head yes. And I said yes, but with my head shake. And they handed me the marker again. And this time, instead of putting it in my left hand like I've done for the last 35 years at that point, I put the pen into my right hand. And I looked down at my hand and I mentally said, you have to work because nothing else does.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote what happened on that piece of paper as if I've been right-handed my entire life. I've been ambidextrous ever since. I can now draw with both hands at the same time. 100%. So that was an immediate affirmation that what happened to me was real and true. And I 100% can control my reality. And so that first moment was like, okay, I can communicate again. I know this all happened. I know where we're going. And then my legs didn't work. And so for the next 4 days, I didn't sleep at all. I just constantly worked on getting my legs to move. After running a race like that, the lactic acid settles in. Normally you would get up and move and walk around and stuff, which relieves that and takes it all out.
Yep.
I didn't. I laid in bed for 7 days, right? So it was not the easiest of tasks to get going again. And when I finally did, it had been 4 days of just constant work. And so standing up at the end of my bed at that point and looking out the window at a brighter future where I was standing and walking felt like accomplishment to me. And so that kind of solidified that I was living in a new mindset, a new world, a new life. And how can I use this for myself and others to bring this into everything? So that's
so was it the actual experience while you were out, or was it the realization afterwards that life is precious and time is limited, and we got to do YOLO, right? I mean, we're only here once. We only do it. We only go around once,
right? And I got a one up, right? Who gets a one up? Like
exactly.
Nobody gets a one up. So like so that was so like there's a little bit of both, right? I mean, some of the things that went on in my other place, in my mind, wherever, whatever you want to call it, some of the things that went on over there while I was gone definitely impacted things today. Like I don't drink alcohol at all. And if anyone else does, that's 100% fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a choice that I've made based on what I saw for my path, and to be able to do what I'm here to do. That was just one of the things, right? So like there were things like that I came back already knowing that I was going to do. And then my experience after coming back has changed a lot of that too. Now, fast forward, and I've had additional life experiences, et cetera, that have pointed me further in that direction and given me even more clarity, even to the point of like, I kind of shut the whole experience off for a few years and just didn't even look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd talk to friends or close people, or people I work with and stuff like that for the first couple of years. Like it just kept kind of close with everything and not really speaking my truth to anyone. And then and then really it was the catalyst of my kids being born, where I really realized, what I want to be for them is the best version of me every day. And what I want them to see is what I know that I'm here to do: bring spirit into form, make the world a better place, use the gifts that I have to impact the lives of others. Right. Yeah. So when that happened, and when my daughter was born, that was the final all in, all done. At that point in time, I weighed 260 pounds. I'm down to a svelte 170 at this
Very
point.
Nice. I need to know your secret.
Happy to help. Everyone can do it. And so that's kind of those things combined really have shifted my life completely.
So there's tons of people who want to 180 their lives, change it completely. It sounds like that's what happened to you. Is there any way you can do this without some sort of catastrophic thing happening? Are there ways?
Absolutely. And that's really the point of why I started doing coaching, because having the experiences I've had, having the mentors and coaches and all that stuff that I've gone through, because I've done a lot of personal growth too. I had a troubled childhood. I was bullied and stuff like that. So I had a lot of anger issues. Family life wasn't the greatest, so there was things that I carried into my adulthood. Hell, I'll even tell you, I was Peter Pan. I mean, I tried not to grow up, right? Like I wanted to be the,
I think a lot of people are in that position right now because they're looking at the world and going, I want to stay a kid. I don't want to grow up. I don't want to be an adult around here.
And that's where the kids came in. So when I had them, it was like, oh, Peter Pan can lead the Lost Boys, but there's something that he was missing, and so that's exactly why I started doing coaching, because there are tools and ways that people can 100% 180 their lives without having to go through the hero's journey, without having to go through the trauma. Why create trauma in your life like that and go through that when there's an easier way? What if you can win and win more? What if you can just have the things that you want without having to toil or work 17, 18-hour days? When I had my software company up in full bloom, I was the 18-hour-a-day employee to myself because I know how much I can do. And, that doesn't serve your life. So yes, there are 100%, a ton of things that I give people as tools all the time to help move past many different types of trauma or get to the environment that they want to have.
Right. Well, can you give us one of your many tools? Just tell us about one of your many tools.
This is an easy one that I learned from a lot of people. And so a lot of people have emotions that get stuck in their body, and if you go with pure spiritual practices and stuff like that, a lot of that's going to tell you to go to the root of it and find where this came from and take a look at it deeply. And some of that can take years and years of time. But we live in the 21st century where we want to download a gigabit of information at a time. So that's not really the fast lane, so to speak. So this tool that I learned, and it's easy to do with someone else. If you want to just visualize, if you have an emotion that you're working on right now that's coming up, that fear, anger, anxiety, those kind of what I'll call negative emotions, right? If you have one of those going on right now for you, so just stop and take a minute. Think about where in your body this emotion exists. And you can point to it, not whatever, but just visualize where this emotion is, right? So you've got this emotion. Now, what color is it? What shape is it? What does it feel like if it were in your hand? How big is it? Right, now you've got this visual of where it's at and all of the things about it. Now just picture yourself grabbing onto that emotion. And now in the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, pull it all the way out. Now replace it with what you would like to have instead. I am peace, I am love, I am joy, I am abundance in all things. Now, if you've done that, you still feel that emotion? And what you'll find is you don't, and it's very interesting. And
wow, that's cool. That's very cool.
That's just one very quick tool that you can use if you're having something come up and you don't want to necessarily unpack all of it right now. That's a really great way to eliminate it, and it will stay gone as long as you don't have more work.
So one of the things I've heard before is deathbed thinking. So you'd project yourself to your deathbed, years in the future, whenever you think it's going to happen. And then you look back upon your life and say, did I do what I wanted to do? And if you can really put yourself in that spot and imagine it, then it might sort of trigger a life change at that point. Because you're like, do I really still want to keep doing this to the point where I'm gone? Exactly.
Yeah, so very true. And honestly, you can use your deathbed, or you could use, your 100th birthday.
Yeah.
What does your 100th birthday look like? Where are you?
Much more optimistic. I like that one.
That's good. So like that's a thing that you can do. Where are you at in your 100th birthday? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Who's with you? What things are you celebrating? And when you're blowing out those candles on your birthday cake for your 100th birthday, what things are you now wishing for, having lived this great and full, wonderful life?
I love it.
And so those are so very much visualization. Words don't describe, they define. And that's a statement from neurolinguistic programming. However, it really does apply to self-help, spirituality. It applies to everything, right? Like in our world, we use a lot of words daily to describe ourselves or others. And are those words building you up, or are they pushing you down? And those are the types of things that you can look at just in your normal speech pattern. And when you go out to 100 years and realize how wonderful your entire life has been, how all the little stuff didn't really matter. And then you can say, okay, well, I got here because I lived a happy, joyful, wonderful life connected to the many people that are around me. So,
nice.
Yeah.
I love it. So now it's time to think like a futurist. It's the year 2033. Where will we be? Will we be more spiritual then? Do you think people will understand and I mean see where things are going and be more happy with their lives, or do you think it is going to be even more turmoil?
Honestly, I feel like we are at the precipice of the AI revolution, if you want to call it that. I feel like right now we have so many of these new tools that are giving us the ability to really unlock pieces of our mind that previously would have taken tons of work, tons of research. There's tools like ChatGPT, which I absolutely love. You're only limited by how much you can think right now. And we have so many smart individuals that are taking these tools that at their basis and saying, what if, and what if on top of that. And so to me, when I look at 10 years out, I look at kind of this world where technology, spirituality, we've kind of brought all of this stuff together. And so, the internet right now is a very, outside of us thing. What if it was a very inside of us thing? What if we had access to all of that all of the time? I mean, our little phone devices were impossible 20 years ago, right? Like, in 2000, when I graduated from high school, there wasn't even an iPod.
Yeah.
So like you couldn't even do any of this stuff. Our phone was a foot long. So if you look at that for 10 years from now, and you look at how things change given software, the rule of microchips, how they've diverged in size to be so small that now like can even be made in silicon. I see a world that's more bio or integrated, where the things that we have and the things that we're able to use and do are now so sophisticated that if you were to go back 20 years, it would absolutely feel like witchcraft.
Right.
So I see that as our new front line for everything. When I look at what we have as capabilities and possibilities, it's like this place that we're at now is the foundation for so much. 10 years down the road, I think, the virtual reality stuff is just going to be like, like they show on the Ready Player One kind of deal, where you actually feel integrated, and I feel like as far as like the tech, like this, us talking, it's going to be more like we're standing in a room together, not really wearing a headset, but same kind of interaction. And I can see your full form, so like I see those types of things as 10 years down the road. If I look at it from the healthcare perspective, I see where we're going with stuff, where we're doing with new solutions for medication management to simplify and to really make things that are patient friendly and reduce and eliminate errors. And I see where that stuff's going, and I see where this AI stuff is, and I see like, how do we merge the two of this to the point where integrated healthcare and spirituality and the medicine and things that we need is all just a part of one greater system that we all have access to all the time. And how can we get there? Well, the next couple of years we'll see.
No, that's fantastic. And I think we do need that sort of unified theory of everything to pull all this stuff together, because I think we've done too much splitting of all of this. We need to become whole again.
I agree 100%. It's like you look at some of the drama in the news, so to speak, and it's like, and it speaks to that too. I think everyone is looking for a more unified solution to everything. And I think that we get there through personal growth, through physical fitness, mental things, working on being more resilient in ourselves. And then when we integrate that with the available technology and embrace that, there shouldn't be a fear of AI taking over the world. There should be a fear of not embracing it and ending up in more conflict instead of resolution.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. I love this. This is fantastic. What's the best, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
The best way, so I have my website, which is unlockandascend.life. So they can reach me there. Additionally, my email address, jonathanhika@gmail, is a great way to get a hold of me quickly, directly. I respond almost immediately, almost, because sometimes there's things, but nonetheless, those are my two favorite ways. If you explore the website too, you can see a little bit about myself, a little bit more about my story, and some of the programs that I'm doing currently. And yeah.
Sounds good. I'll put all in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can. So thank you so much. It's been great.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you for having me
Okay.
on. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.
Cheers.
Bye.